What a historic day for America. The good old bump stock ban has been struck down by the Supreme Court.
Draw a distinction between a machine gun, which had been illegal in the United States since 1934, and that 1934 law defines a machine gun as a weapon that fires more than one shot with a single function of the trigger, and a bump stock, which is not the same thing, according to the plaintiffs and now the Supreme Court of the United States. A bump stock uses the recoil of the rifle and the shooter's own manipulation of that pressure to achieve a very high rate of fire. The trigger continues to discharge the projectile every single shot. So it's not the same thing. I mean, right here in black and white, it's an opinion by Clarence Thomas. He says, we conclude that a semi-automatic rifle equipped with a bump stock is not a machine gun.
So I think we've got to be very factual when we talk about this stuff. So let's start with the first thing.
Between a machine gun, which had been illegal in the United States since 1934.
A machine gun is not illegal. It requires an NFA tax stamp. Now, in order to buy a machine gun, you're going to have a ton of money, because even though suppressors are also regulated under the NFA, they're not 20 grand. They're like 600 bucks, 800 bucks. But they are not illegal. It's not illegal to have one. It's just, it's going to take some financial commitment.
That's right. So in 2018, Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump at the time, told the ATF that they could regulate bump stocks, which is this mechanism that allows guns to fire like machine guns.
Not at all. And in fact, if you have a good Geisley trigger, maybe CMC, you are able to have a rate of fire that is pretty damn quick. Some people, you can tell if they're shooting automatic or semi-automatic. So it's not this, oh man, it's turning it into a machine gun type of thing. I think this brings up a great point about America, though. I think what we need to do as America is we need to run with this. Shall not be infringed. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the fact that we spend this much time, this much taxpayer dollars on Congress, the Supreme Court, ATF, everyone who's trying to regulate our firearms is a joke. Why not just follow what the Second Amendment says? Why not? Oh, well, dangerous people will be able to get them. They already got them. Don't you get that? They already have them. If they want them, they can get them. There are people at a street level that get guns from South America. They make guns in South America and several other places for this exact reason.
This is how guns made.
So we're here in a workshop in Danao where some of these guns are made, and they're all done by hand, and it's slowly assembled into the parts of the gun. So this is a slide.
If everything was legal, they would have no business. They would have zero business. They wouldn't be making fake 1911 in a forest somewhere. But our government thinks that they can regulate morally good people in this country. So therefore, it creates a business for someone who wants to participate in illegal activities. And then guess what? You can buy a gun on the street in the United States. No serial number, no nothing. So let's talk about how this bump stock thing came into place. I imagine most of you remember, but there was a mass shooting, one of the biggest ever, in Las Vegas, when the shooter sat at the top of one of these casinos and just fired down on a Jason Aldean concert. And they were saying, oh, it's because of bump stocks. Look, once again, if he had a really good trigger in these guns, you wouldn't have been able to tell. His finger probably would have gotten a little more tired, but you wouldn't be able to tell. Also, he had machine guns. It wasn't just bump stocks. Folks, not everybody is super excited about how the economy is going, and that includes banks. Over 300 banks are at risk of failing currently, and it's one of the reasons why I choose American Hartford Gold to protect my money. Throughout our lifetime, the dominance of the US dollar has been unquestioned, but that has definitely changed. As we face unprecedented inflation, even like we said, banks are starting to fail. And for me, that leads me to put more and more money into precious metals. So now is the time to call the only precious metal dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. They'll show you how to protect your savings and your retirement portfolio by diversifying your assets into physical gold and silver. If you have a bunch of cash in the bank, I would be scared at this moment. American Hartford Gold has a 5-star rating with the Better Business Bureau. Tell them that I sent you and they will give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first order. So call now, 844-940-0662 or text HEAVY to 65532. Make sure that your savings and retirement are protected with American Hartford Gold. No one else is going to offer that kind of protection, especially not banks. But let's talk about some of the people that are upset. All right, why don't we start with Deborah? As a Las Vegas resident, I find this ruling to be absolutely disgusting. But everyone in this country should be upset about this. Why do we need bump stocks in a civilized world? SCOTUS corruption runs very deep. Thank Thomas and Alito for a return to the wild, wild west. I imagine you're not a gun owner. I imagine you have no idea how these things operate. But you're welcome to your opinion. But I think where you screwed up is where you say everyone in this country should be upset about this. You're wrong. Most people are happy about this. Most people are saying, well, thank God the Supreme Court finally made a good decision.
So this week, the Senate will step in to try and fix the chaos the MAGA court just unleashed. As soon as tomorrow, Democrats will seek passage of a federal ban on bump stocks. And I urge my Republican colleagues not to block Senator Heinrich when he comes to the floor. He's the author of the bill banning bump stocks and leading the charge to get it passed quickly. Passing a bill banning bump stocks should be the work of 5 minutes. Most Americans support this step. Poll after poll show that a majority of people, including independents, support restrictions on AR-15 style rifles, which is what bump stocks are designed to emulate. I understand that the issue of gun safety provokes intense disagreement in Congress. But shouldn't we all agree that preventing another tragedy like Las Vegas is just plain common sense and a good thing? Banning bump stocks would go a long way to making it harder for murderers to carry out large shootings. So I hope our Republican colleagues join us.
And then to finish off with, we've got to go over what Joe Biden said about this. Of course, he started with the Las Vegas tragedy. Typical. I think there's a good point in here. While extreme congressional Republicans want to defund the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, I've used every tool in my administration to stamp out gun violence. Yeah, you're right. You used the ATF to kill an airport executive. Should we continue with the crap that they've done? And let me be clear, people in Congress, if you're saying, oh, let's defund the ATF, you're still not on our team. Remove the ATF. They serve zero purpose in this country. How often do you see an ATF agent in the hood trying to stop some gangster with a Glock switch? Zero. We see it 0 times. Zero. We never see it. But what we do see is them knocking on some morally good citizen's door because they think they're breaking an administrative gun law. How does that make sense? How does it make sense? I call on Congress to ban bump stocks, pass an assault weapons ban, and take additional action to save lives. Send me a bill and I will sign it immediately. So clearly Joe Biden's going to try to reverse this, but I think this is a major victory for the Second Amendment community. For people who cherish what our forefathers wrote. And at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. It's really not. Bump stocks are a part of the Second Amendment, shall not be infringed, but at the end of the day, they're really not better than a good trigger.